weather. The state of the atmosphere at a place and time as regards heat, dryness, sunshine, wind, rain, etc. It's one of the many focal conversations of our everyday lives. It's that thing that will decide what we're going to wear. Will it be hell on earth or colder than my heart on any other day? Yeah, a little joke. Okay. All right. It's used as a speaking point for both sides of the political table, each spinning their own narratives of how the other side is using it to their advantage. But maybe, just maybe, it's just a charade. Either way. Because there's a theory, or just an open secret at this point, that the government controls the weather. Now, do I believe that there's an entity that's within our physical realm, at least, can force its power on a global scale, just like our favorite comic book characters, Storm or Silver Skeeter? Not really. But then again, I don't know. I haven't completely gone down that rabbit hole yet. Dun, dun, dun. Do I believe that the government is taking advantage of natural disasters by allowing private businesses private businesses to buy up recently destroyed land or property for low prices and then jacking up the prices to newly renovated homes and lands, or like having the government pay for it and then like the business will come and like buy it out? Yes, I do. We've seen throughout history and present as well. And don't get me started on insurance companies. Why are customers fighting tooth and nail to get back money that they are essentially storing away for a rainy day, only to be dropped from their policy without rhyme or reason? I mean, we saw that with the fires in California. Yeah, I can go on about that. And let's not get started on the outdated infrastructures. How are houses still being built without the purpose of, protection against these natural disasters or like danger zones? Like, why are we not considering that? Or they're considering that. So we're fucking designing them, okay? But I mean, we all know the answer. It's pretty obvious. What is Shane McMahon's intro for his, entrance? It's all about the money. Shane McMahon's entrance song is all about the money. Okay, but that whole little rant, that can be a whole episode itself. Okay, but moving on. But after reading some cases and doing my own quote unquote research, I have learned that the weather, you haven't already known, is not to be messed with. And there are many receipts to prove that. This is Mind Over Wonder, Episode 7, Weather, Manipulation, Theories, and Phenomenons. Okay, this first theory will have you side-eyeing those big white puffy things in the sky that we call clouds. Because alien spaceships are hiding within, or they themselves are creating them for coverage. Once again, dun dun dun. There's a lot of dun dun duns. Okay. By using lenticular clouds, now if you're not familiar with, the cloud terminology, that's okay because I'm in the same boat. So let me just give you a brief lesson. Lenticular clouds are stationary clouds that form mostly in the troposphere, typically in parallel alignment to the wind direction. So, and if you, a quick Google search and you'll see where the theory stems from. I mean, these clouds literally look like those stereotypical flying saucers you'll see in those 1960s, 70s photos, which is a perfect segue to the Chilean photo. Okay. Before I get to the story, I just want to make a quick note. When searching around for this photo, I learned that Chile is a hotspot for aliens and other whirly phenomenons. There was even a crash landing site on top of a hill called Las Molasses in a small town near Coquimbo. that was given the name Chichilin Roswell. So that's pretty interesting. Like they have their own version of Roswell. So mark my words, I will for sure be revisiting that topic. Back to the story. It's February 14th, 2010 in Santiago, Chile, and at Iveso Reservoir. A family of 3 is having a Sunday afternoon picnic with the mother when the mother decides to capture some moments of the day in her phone. Fun, 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 snap, snap, snap. When she notices up in the sky a group of reddish clouds, she takes a photo. They wrap up their day and head home. It's not until she's scrolling through the photos, like back at the house, when she comes across the photo of the reddish clouds. And as she zooms in, she notices what appears to be a glowing orange object hidden amongst the clouds. So, like a quick side note, this story is new to me, but in season 4, episode 2 of History Channel's series called "The Proof Is Out There," they covered the story called the Chichilian photo. So that's where the name came from. So it's the Chichilian photo incident, and their experts reviewed the evidence and they have their own theories. One calling the blemish a lens flare, but you're gonna find out soon. But in a surprising twist, it was concluded that the metallic object in the cloud wasn't exactly an alien spaceship, but what they call an unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAP for short. It was also pointed out that the Chile's government did not confirm this, but the National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomenon, or NARCAP for short, published a 23-page case report confirming the object as a UAP. Dun, dun, dun. I mean, but who do you believe? I mean, do you believe the Chile's government or like the actual aviation center? Come on. I mean, if they say this is real, then I'm like, oh, I'm going to put my money on them. All right. So they confirm it was a UAP. This story goes only as far as the History Channel series. When trying to find more information, the reports are just rehashing the story like I'm doing right now, as well as other sightings of different Chilean UAPs. Now, is it real? What does the family have to gain? From the readings or reports, names were never released. They were only labeled Mr. and Mrs. X. In addition, the family, from what I know of, did not do any interviews. It was reported that they were not seeking publicity or money. In fact, the photos were seen only by the family members and friends. It wasn't until the photo was shown to a family friend who was an investigator of UAP, who would go on and send it off to the CEFAA. I believe that was the Chile Aviation Center. After learning this, do I believe what she captured was an alien spaceship? At the time, I would have been like, yes, that was an alien spaceship. But over the course of recent years, I agree with the experts. I think it was UAP, just because just because UAPs, like I said, it's been around, so it's like whatever. I come back to it. I put a pin in that. I come back. So yes, it was. They say it was going to be UAP, and like I said, I think it was. I agree with them now, learning now what I've learned about UAPs. I agree. It was a UAP. Now, who was controlling that? I believe is most likely, obviously, for me, the government. I mean, they probably built this, found this, stole this. I don't know, and was like, let's test this object. Let's test this little ship out. We're gonna come to this little area. We're gonna fly, thinking it was isolated. No, it was a family right there looking up at the sky. Can you just imagine? They had a game plan. Whoever was controlling it had a game plan. Was like, we're gonna choose this area, and we're gonna. It's a nice blue sky. It's a cloudy day. We can just kind of, we can just see what happens. And little do they know, I guess you go back to the drawing board because their incognito skills. It's not the best. Think about that's so funny. They thought they really did something. Thinking they can put this giant ass metallic object hidden in clouds. gotta work on that. You gotta work on that invisibility shield, baby. Okay, moving on. The next theory is fog. A Reddit user pointed out how the government created fog to hide things in the sky, which I question. Why risk other air disasters just for fog? Like, why would I do that? But just because it sounds far-fetched doesn't mean the theory isn't true, and there's proof that can be found to this day. This is how Germans created their own fog during World War II. Don't you just love those World? Okay. Tirpitz was Germany's largest battleship. Britain's wartime leader at the time, Winston Churchill, boo! Sorry. He commissioned it as the Beast. Having been armed with 15 guns, 4 twin turrets, and after a series of modifications, it was 2,000 tons heavier than their prior warship, 35,000-ton Bismarck. And during its run was called, quote, the pride of the Royal Navy. Now, Kriegsmarine's German's Navy had used a Kford in northern Norway to anchor their ship. A forge, I hope I pronounced that correctly, is a long, deep, narrow body of water that reaches far inland. Fords are often set in a U-shaped valley with steep walls of rock on either side. So pretty much a rest stop for ships. So it's just like this body of water, and on either side of it is these large, like steep mountains or like walls. But being here caused more harm than good. Allies were trying to provide aid and supplies were running the risk of going into direct line of enemy fire, with having both Soviet and British aircrafts making several attempts to sink Tirpitz, the warship. Because of its size and location, they were pretty much sitting ducks in this area. So, yeah, it was very, you're a huge ship, you're sitting in this body of water, direct line of fire. Until they had an idea. Oh, a wonderful, marvelous idea. This is something a villain from Captain Planet would cook up. Let's destroy the planet. I have an idea. This is something direct. This is like a Captain Planet episode, because the idea was, what if we can hide in plain sight? Mixing chlorofuronic acid with water produced a thick white vapor, fog, creating the perfect smoke screen. It was said by the soldiers who operated the smoke generators were required to wear acid-resistant suits and breathing masks from the, quote, erosion acid in the toxic fumes, end quote. Another safety regulation required that they were to keep a minimum distance of 25 meters or 82 feet, and the smoke generators had to be placed on bare batches as the ground cover was, quote, eaten, end quote, by the acid in the surrounding area. U.S. Military Intelligence Service stated that, quote, everything on the ground that came into contact with the liquid was burned, and grass, green leaves turned yellow. In 1943, U.S. Military Intelligence Service reported, quote, that the smoke used by the Kriegsmarine, the U.S. Navy, in Norway made more nose and throat irritation that deployed at the European locations. It continues, also, the act of pouring liquid into water will remove the spark burnage from fishing boats. More on the smoke. It incapacitated men working in the vicinity, and although cattle in the adjoining fields apparently were not seriously affected, local residents also reported that the people had breathing difficulties, end quote. But those were the effects at the time that they knew of. Its lingering effects on the environment would show decades later. German forest ecologist Claudia Hart from Johannes Gutenberg University in Mainz, Germany, discovered that the Norwegian trees near Kford, where the Tirpitz or the German ship was anchored, were missing a few rings. Now, what are these rings I speak of? Tree rings are visible bands of wood that forms around a tree trunk as it grows. Each ring represents 1 year of growth. After ruling out what they call climate reconstruction, they had to dig further. So they're trying to figure out why these trees didn't have like enough tree rings around them. They sampled trees closest to where the ship was anchored, and that about 60% of trees did not produce a ring in 1945. This was time during the World War II, right? There was also smoke inside some of these trees, while other trees didn't grow for several years after the war. It was summarized that most likely that the, quote, trees lost their needles due to the fog, which harmed their ability to photosynthesize, end quote. That is wild. So the trees near the ship did not grow. They lost their ability to grow. Claudia had this to say to Live Science after their findings. Quote, what I think is very interesting is the human impact on ecosystems. If you have a drought event, the trees also show a growth decline. But you can also see that these trees recover, and usually it doesn't take longer than 5 years. But in northern Scandinavia, through the Second World War II impact, it took trees 12 years to recover. That's a really strong impact, end quote. On November 12, 1944, about 30 British Lancaster bombers hit Turbis, the German ship, with tall boys bombs, 5-tom and 5-tom bombs. And after being hit 3 times, the master ship capsized and sank, all within 11 minutes. So once again, I say, artificial smoke, was it a success or was it even worth the trouble? You had the ship, it was the biggest ship, it sunk after 11 minutes. It did so much damage. I mean, draw your own conclusions. And that was artificial, and that was the artificial smoke that the Germans created. Up next is a weather phenomenon that's going to have you checking to see if you have flashlights and candles in handy. This is the case of the dark day. On May 19th, 1780, in New England, residents woke up to see a strange yellowish color morning sky, with the clouds being dark and heavy, and it began to spread from parts of Canada to most of the northeastern states to New England. By the afternoon, it was pitch black. All that anyone could do was to return home, light candles, and pray. Since Protestant was the most practiced religion in the area, it was only natural to assume that the people believed it was, quote, Day of Judgment or Second Coming of Christ, end quote. It was like Count Your Days, y'all. I don't mean to laugh. Because back then I would have been scared out of my mind. I don't know what's going on. I would have been praying too. I didn't mean to laugh, but come on. Imagine that. Imagine having that during this time. Oh my God. I don't know. I can't imagine. And it's like pitch dark. It is pitch dark. I mean, candles can only light up so much. Nowadays we have like LCD lights. Oh my goodness. I can't imagine. But as quickly as it descended, as like the darkness descended, it quickly receded. So from like one moment, like one day it was dark, pitch black, the next day as if nothing happened. So y'all, So it wouldn't be until several decades later, theories and possible occurrence that caused the dark day to start popping up. One theory that it was a solar eclipse, but there are records of these occurrences, and they never lasted a whole day. So that was dismissed. Atmospheric professor Thomas Shorrotten says this, quote, volcanic ash clouds often cause yellow days, end quote. Noting that Mount St. Helens in Washington State had lowered light levels. But just like the solar eclipse, there was no record of volcanic activity back then. Thomas continued, quote, making huge ash cloud an unlikely explanation. He noted, a meteorite is equally unlikely, although you can't rule it out completely, end quote. It was also noted by senior climatologist at Environment Canada, Dave Phillips, that there was another dark day that happened in 1950 in the same area of North America. However, this was caused by a forest fire in Alberta, which coincides with the eyewitness were claiming to see back in 1780. Soot spotted in the rivers in Boston journalists. Which concedes with what eyewitnesses were claimed to see back in 1780. Soot spotted in the rivers in a Boston journalist named Jeremy Bergnap wrote in the letter that the, quote, air smell of malt house or a coal kiln, end quote. Possible fire that started maybe near the Canadian-U.S. border. So they're saying this could have been like a forest fire that kind of covered, that blackened the area. Okay, so yes. So possible, yeah. But plot twist. Dun dun dun. William Corliss, a physicist and chronicler of unexplained events, found 46 accounts of dark days around the years 1091 and 1971. Oh my God. So this was not the only dark thing that was around. So yeah, what the hell was going on? Either there was a lot of forest fires, or it's just like, what? There cannot be that many forest fires. I mean, you say it now, but like, no way. I don't. So yeah, you guys, it was exactly what the hell was going on back then. I mean, 1971, there was a dark day. Can you believe that? I want to research that. I want to know, like, really? I feel like that was around the corner in 1971. Let me not go down that rabbit hole, but I'm gonna put a pin in that. I want to figure out how the dark day was back then, because that's kind of like recent. Even though we're in 2025, like there has to be accounts. I'm gonna look that up. But yes, that was their dark day. Moving on, the ball of lightning. There's a video, a man recording what appears to be a ball of light descending from above and gliding just above the train tracks. The person recording claims it was a ball of lightning. This is what scientists call a rare and mysterious weather phenomenon that appears as a floating, glowing, often red, orange, yellow, or blue sphere of electricity or plasma during thunderstorms, leaving behind a sulfur-like smell in its trails. It was said that the electric sphere would enter rooms and explode, either causing a fire or even striking whoever was around. Now, these sightings have dated throughout the years, even dating back to the early centuries, and there are drawings if you want to see it. So, it wasn't just like word of mouth. It was like we have receipts to back it up. The oldest report goes back to 1195. An English monk witnessed a, quote, sort of fiery globe, end quote, descending from a storm cloud and falling to the river Thames. In 1901, at the Hotel Georges de Loup near Nice, France, engineer Louis Otto and friends witnessed a ball of lightning enter their room's window, and I guess it exploded. I don't really know. It doesn't really say much after that. I don't know what the hell happened. Like, but there's also a drawing of that too. It's just like a ball of lightning, and like there's like 3 men or 4 men. They're just kind of like, oh, well, lightning. Other sightings were on a plane during a storm, and the electric ball came and hovered down the aisle like a goddamn stewardess. Just like filling up drinks and passing out peanuts. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a ball of lightning just going up and down the aisle, terrorizing people? You can just, and you are glued to that seat, just looking at this thing just go up and down the aisles. Oh my God! And you're up in the sky in the plane. Oh my God, I can't. You up in the sky, like. Sorry. In 1892, a tailor and his family witnessed a lightning ball that he said was the size of a human head float down the chimney and fly around the room, just terrorizing the family before returning to the chimney and exploding once they reached the top. The illustration is low key funny because the sphere really does look like it's terrorizing the hell out of this family. Poor baby. Can you imagine? And then like destruction on his way up out of the house. Exploding. I'll be so mad. I'd be traumatized. I'm having too much fun with this one. Okay. So, in conclusion, there's still no definitive reason on how these balls of lightning are created. Question is it real, an optical illusion, or even a hallucination? To this day, scientists cannot recreate the phenomenon. Mark Ullman, the emeritus distinguished professor from the University of Florida, quoted, "If ball of lightning was easy to make, if ball lightning was easy to make, we would have made it," end quote. And he said that's on period. I'm having too much fun on that one. On this one. That's interesting. But yes. Now, I cannot forget why I started this search for the weather and who or what controls it. Hurricanes. And you can't talk about hurricanes without talking about cloud seeding. Well, actually, I don't know. I don't know how many people pair those two together, but sure, whatever. This is Project Storm Fury and Project Cirrus. Okay, so which is why like looking up these two projects, I see why people think that you can control the weather, because these is like exactly what they were trying to do with the hurricanes. Okay, so Project Storm Fury and Project Cirrus were U.S. government programs that experimented with hurricane modifications using artificial stimulation through seeding. Seeding is the act of spreading substances such as certain chemicals in clouds in order to make them produce rain or more rain. So, another like little stem from the theory of controlling the weather. So I'm going to try my best to describe how the project went about. Scientists, through seeding, spread silver iodine outside the walls of the hurricane, creating another eye. Okay, so which caused the original eye to clash with the new one, resulting it to essentially weaken its strong winds, thus causing less destruction. So this, these two eyes are clashing. It's not producing enough wind because it's too focused on this other eye. So, like I said, end result, less destruction, weakened winds, whatever. So over the course of 8 days, 4 different hurricanes were experimented on. The maximum reduction that the experiment resulted was 30%. And any additional results were due to failed seeding execution or other factors. Hurricanes have too much natural ice and not enough super cool water to let any outside entities try to contain it. Okay, it can't be tamed. It can't be tamed. I can't be tamed, it said. Sorry. Sorry. So what did I learn? That Friendly Blue Skies is a great place for the government to keep their shiny new toys. It can be reproduced and weaponized, resulting in damaging effects to the environment that are present to this day. It can go through their dark phase, causing the society to freak the fork out, thinking it was the end times. It can send down a Naruto-like resin gun to blast unlucky individuals. But, there's still so much more of Storm and Silver Skeeter's powers that I have not discovered. Like, I want to know more about the weather on different planets. On my ruling planet, Sagittarius, Jupiter, it rains diamonds. And, this one isn't really like weather related, but on twin planets, Kepler, or is it Kepler? Kepler 138c and Kepler 138d both have about half of their volume of just water. So it's just water in there. I mean, half of it. Which I feel like is the same as this planet. This planet is 90% water? I don't know. Let's not get started on that. But anyway, it's half of water. So I want to know what kind of life forms, it's on those planets. Is it like, what's his name? Aquaman? You think Aquaman and stuff is in there? Because I know there is some type of, I know that there are some sea creatures in there. I can't even wrap my head around it. I know there's some, I don't even want to imagine it because it gets kind of scary. I scare myself. Just imagining what kind of stuff is on that planet. But let me stop. So like I said, that's for another episode. So this has been Mind Over Wonder, episode 7, Weather Manipulation, Theories and Phenomenons, part 1. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, bye.